Okay, what's going on? Vincent Rapisardi, BigBlueUnbiased.com. Third day in a row doing a video. Like I said, these are very important times in New York Giants football. This is a very important time in New York Giants football, and I believe that we have to continue to discuss it, dissect it, break it down, analyze it, and all of that. A couple of things I want to talk about today. We're going to talk about the Giants signing Isaiah Wilson, the offensive tackle, former first-round pick. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about Joe Judge and the comments that he made today regarding analytics. We'll also talk about Blake Martinez very quickly as well. So let's start with Joe Judge because I think that's the most important topic to talk about here. So Joe Judge told the media today, and here is the quote, "Analytics is just a tool. You can look at a stat sheet all you want. I promise ya, if Excel was gonna win football games, Bill Gates would be killing it right now. But you've got to take those numbers," and it continued, "as a tool and go ahead and factor in how your team's playing at the time and how the opponent is as well, and also the flow of the game." So that's what he said. Now, these comments came off as very anti-analytic, and of course, Twitter hated it because Twitter, of course, they would hate more of an old-school football coach. Twitter is more, it's a younger age group, and people love to pile on because the Giants are bad. Now, let me break this down. If you've watched my channel, I'm very pro-analytics, okay? I think that I'm not saying 100% of the time it's right because there are garbage time numbers. There are things that you have to consider in terms of situation and what kind of offensive line a quarterback's playing behind with what kind of receivers. You know, if you just look at straight QBR, you might say, ooh, that's good, ooh, that's bad. But you also have to take into account who's the offensive coordinator. What's the offensive line situation? Do they have any weapons? So there are other factors. Everything isn't just black or white. There are certain other different traits and things like that you have to take into account when judging analytics. But I think the good part about analytics, you can look at those other areas. Let's say a quarterback behind a bad offensive line with bad weapons. The analytics will probably tell you that the offensive line is bad and the weapons are bad as well. So if you dive deep into the analytics, you can really find a lot, and you can really make a really strong assessment of a player or a team. So I'm very pro-analytics because it's just math, and I'll get into that right here. So Joe Judge makes these comments, and of course everybody goes crazy, and they say, wow, this is why the Giants stink, because Joe Judge is so old school, he thinks numbers and analytics are stupid. I don't think he really meant that in the quote. I think he was just saying, like, look, yeah, analytics have their value, but at the same time, as a coach, you have to be able to manage personalities, the situation, how your team is doing in terms of maybe momentum, or maybe a player on the other side just got hurt. One of their star players, one of their best players, one of your players just got hurt. Different things, right? There's different things over the course of a game that a coach, especially with one of more of an old school mindset, might say, I'm going to go with my gut. I'm going to go with what I see, how my players are reacting, the flow of the game, those different kinds of things. Let me also add this. When it comes to analytics, you know, I tweeted this out today. There's the stigma around analytics that it's like this big brain, nerdy, crazy modern way of analyzing things. Not just football, but everything. Analytics is just math. That's it. And math has been around since the beginning of time. I don't know why so many people seem to be, or at least come off as kind of scared, maybe old school football or old school this and that. I don't know why they come off to be scared of analytics, or maybe like there's definitely a stigma around analytics that it's just for the nerds and it's just, it's the crazy modern way of making decisions. It's just math. And like I said, is it the end-all be-all? Is it the only way to assess a team or a player or whatever, anything? No, there are other assessments too. Of course, you have to judge different types of characters, personalities, the flow of the game, different things that might happen that you might need someone to manage your players. Your coach needs to manage the players with his own assessment of those players and what he thinks is best for them. Like I said, I'm very pro analytics, but it is kind of interesting. I don't know if Joe Judge was insinuating that he's not a fan of analytics. I don't think he was, but let's just say he was for the sake of this argument. I don't really understand the stigma around analytics being this like where kind of an old school mentality pushes against it. It's just math. And like I said, math has been around for a very, very long time. It's not going to give you the perfect formula and perfect solution to everything, but I think it steers you in the right direction most of the time. And they're facts, right? 2 + 2 = 4. That's a fact. You can't really argue that one. So a lot of people went off on Joe Judge. I don't really think he meant to really to blow off analytics. I think he was just saying, look, we value analytics, but at the same time, we have to know how to manage our guys. That's my job as head coach. That's what I think Joe Judge was saying. What I'm also adding to that is, for other people who may be more old school minded or they don't like analytics, my feelings or my message to you would be, look, it's just math. It shouldn't be looked at as this nerdy, new age, crazy modern way of analyzing things. It's just math. And I think it makes sense for the most part to follow it because they're usually just facts. For the most part, if a guy has a high QBR, he's probably a good quarterback. Like I said, there may be a situation. Maybe they have a great offensive line and great wide receivers, and if they wanted another team, their QBR would be way lower. Yeah, okay. But for the most part, a high QBR is probably going to be a good quarterback. A guy that, puts in 40 pressures as an edge rusher. Yeah, maybe he has some good players around him that help him get, put him in a nice spot to pressure the quarterback. But at the end of the day, 40 pressures is pretty good. So he's probably a pretty good football player. That's my point. The numbers, for the most part, they're going to tell you the story. And if you dig deep, you can give yourself even a little bit more context if you continue to dig deep and see who's around him, what are they doing, how are they producing, and how it may impact that player, good or bad. So that's my take on the Joe Judge quote. Like I said, I don't think he was really slamming analytics that much. I think he was just saying, look, we need to kind of use both. We need to be good at judging our own players, just kind of managing them as people, and we also need, I think analytics does bring some value. I don't think he was completely killing analytics, but when the Giants are as bad as they are, a quote like that, it's going to be taken out of context, and they're going to say, wow, this guy hates analytics, and he's an idiot, and this is why the Giants are terrible. And they got an old GM, Dave Gettleman's 70 years old school football, trenches, hog mollies guy. They're going to say, wow, these people, they just don't want to adapt to new football, to the analytics, to the numbers. They're stuck in the past, and this is why they're terrible. So the quote, clearly, it was used against him. A big reaction against Joe Judge on that. And I'm saying here, he's got to be careful with that because it makes him look bad. It does, unfortunately. Like I said, I don't think he really meant it to be that way, but when you start making it out to be like, well, if Bill Gates was using Excel, he would be the greatest head coach of all time. Like when you start getting like that and you're losing, oh boy. So the reaction was that. Isaiah Wilson, the Giants signed him. Interesting piece. Former first-round pick. There's not much else on him. Add some depth. I mean, the Giants have been hit with retirements and a bunch of injuries on the offensive line. And it looks like Ben Bredeson will not play. He will not play this week. It looks like he's banged up. So they bring in Isaiah Wilson, another piece to the offensive line as they try and repair it. Nick Gates, Shane Lemieux injured, had some retirements in the training camp. So they're trying to kind of stick things together here. It's not ideal, but they dealt with a lot of injuries and weird things. So that's that. And then finally, I'll wrap up quickly with Blake Martinez. He's out for the season. Torn ACL. Look, it's obviously very unfortunate, and he's a good football player. I will say this, though. This, to me, isn't like, oh, this is the biggest loss in the defense, and this is going to destroy them. Like I said, it's unfortunate. He's a good football player. I like Blake Martinez a lot as a football player. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying in terms of the impact of his position, 15 years ago, I would have said, yeah, middle linebacker, a thumper like Blake Martinez, that's a pretty big loss. When teams are running the football a little bit more, I would say, yeah. these days, Tate Crowder played very well, actually, this past week against Atlanta. And now you have a player like Jabril Peppers who maybe gets more snaps now. He's more of an in-the-box kind of safety anyway, so you can play him closer to the line of scrimmage. Maybe you can play all three of those guys. They can find a way to play Logan Ryan, Xavier McKinney, and Jabril Peppers, put them on the field all at the same time, a bunch of times, and just kind of piece that area of the team together. I think if they lost Leonard Williams, that would be a huge loss. I know he hasn't played great to start the season, but to have a pass-rushing defensive lineman, that is tough to find. Guy that does it that well. If they lost James Bradbury, I know James Bradbury hasn't played great to start the season, but I always said, wow, that's a big loss. You got to be good at corner. You got to be good on the outside in today's NFL. You have to. And Adoree Jackson is doing actually very well. I tweeted last night. Passer rating of 72, completion percentage of 42%. He's been pretty good. He dropped the interception on Sunday, but overall, he's done a nice job in coverage. Obviously, if they lost Andrew Thomas, that would be a huge loss. Left tackle who's playing outstanding, and obviously if they lost Daniel Jones, that would be absolutely the end of their season. So, all I'm saying is, yes, Blake Martinez, good football player. You don't want to lose a player like that, but I think that they can overcome it. I don't think that, now the Giants' defense is just absolutely going to fall apart because of that loss. I think they can piece it together. Like I said, Jabril Pepper is kind of an in-the-box safety anyway. Maybe play him a little bit more. I don't know. Something interesting. They have some options. They have so many different. They have three really quality safeties, and like I mentioned, Jabril Pepper's more of kind of an in-the-box guy anyway. So that is that with the Giants.